I think differences bring to light the commonness in each one of us. I'm Shubha. Shubha Narayan is my name. I come from India. My passion is Montessori. My life is Montessori. And yes, I've been in Montessori for about a good 35, 36 years. It's had a huge influence on who I am, what I do, the way I am.
Well, let's start there. The way you are. How are you?
My outlook is positive. Because I work with children of the next generation, children who are going to inherit the world after I have passed, there appears to be a seed of, or seeds of culture, of unity, of peace, of things that are important to us as human beings, which my generation and the previous generation have let go of, that we're able to sow or allow for it to flower and grow.
What are those forgotten seeds, the things that we haven't nourished then?
I think the main thing which we have forgotten to nourish is the fact that there is only one earth. That if we do not care for ourselves, our earth, the way we are, the way we interact with the earth, then we continue to take or use earth as something that we can take away from. There doesn't seem to be a nourishment. Thomas Berry talks about the fact that what you see outside is what is reflected in all of us. And when we look outside today, there is a lot of chaos. So that's probably what is going on inside of each and every one of us human beings. So how then can we break the cycle or start a new cycle for children who are going to be a part of this world, who are literally going to inherit the earth?
Tell me, how do you do that? Because if the example that is set is not a good example, and one would have to say historically it has not been, how do you break a pattern?
It's not a generalized something you can do for the entirety of the human race. When we look at the entirety of the human race, we stop doing anything because it's too big a job. So we cannot look at the entirety. All you can look at is myself. What do I need to change in myself? And because I am with children, what is it that is important that I'm passing on? So things like kindness, respect not just for one another, but respect for oneself as well, and respect for the environment are the three important things that I feel needs to be a part of every child's life and living.
But we live in this world of competition. We live in this world where success is based on achievement. What do you say to the kids in terms of how they integrate what you're saying in the world they live?
It boils down to the definition of success. Is success pulling the earth apart? Is it wars? Is competition a way for success? Can we look at cooperation? Can we look at being with one another in a different way? Can we look at what is important? Localized economies. What does economy mean? So these are the big questions that we do explore with the senior students in our school. So the 9 to 13-year-olds, what does it all mean? And where to from here? So there is an internal element of success that we each look at how much money do we each need? Is that going to make us happy? How do we be friends with everybody? So yes, I have to take you back to the definition of success. So what I define as success may not be what somebody else defines it as.
Your background, has that influenced your thinking? Perhaps you could tell me a wee bit about growing up in India and how that has shaped you in the way you see the world.
So when I was a young girl, life in India was quite simple. I come from a city called Bangalore. I lived most of my life in Bangalore, but we come from a big joint family. So I used to live in part of my life, I lived in my great-grandparents' place. And one of the memories that stays with me from there is this warm, sunny days. It appeared like there was no ending to the day. It just was warm, fuzzy. And you were fed and you were let outside to play. So you spent most of your growing time in outdoors. So you climbed on the rocks, you fell off the rocks, you jumped across creeks, you fished for tadpoles, you learned to swim in wells. There were snakes around, there were fireflies, and certainly mosquitoes. There were cousins, there were uncles, aunts, there was food. We just had to get along with one another. One of the things that the elders in the families used to do is they never treated you as anybody's different or special when they compared you to your cousin. We were all just exactly the same. So there was no, what's the word I'm looking for? You weren't put in a special place because of anything. So in a way, we learned to fight, we learned to get along, and we learned to be together.
Perhaps we've also lost that seed in many ways. Unstructured play is one of the most fundamental processes for a child to gain a sense of self-resilience and ability, agency.
Absolutely. I mean, since the babies are quite young, they're constantly in prams and in cars and taken to music and movement, taken here, taken there. And there's a lot of helicopter parenting nowadays. Children do not have the time or place to just be. And with all this comes layers and layers of conditioning and expectations of how they have to be successful or what we are hoping for each of them, rather than letting them find their path in life. So what we talk a lot about in Montessori is that the seeds of all culture needs to be sown. You have to expose children to good music, good art, but it's not crowding their worlds with a lot of after school, whatever it is that we do nowadays. Tuitions, maths tuitions. We get to gymnastics. There's many a thing that keeps them going.
These interviews are called Immigrant Journeys. Your journey is connected with children, but as the adult who arrived in a different country, how many years ago, by the way?
23.
23. Does it feel like that?
Actually, it doesn't. It doesn't. It just seems like the other day that I arrived, and I still remember leaving my country, and I had never ever left India before. When we got our permanent residency to come to New Zealand, there were 2 jobs in Montessori that were going. One was in Whakatane, and the other was in Balclutha. So I applied to both of them. I got a phone call from the lady who owned the school in Balclutha. So we did an interview over the phone. And she said, can you please come in 2 weeks' time, because our term is starting in 2 weeks. And I was by no means ready. So 3 weeks later, I did arrive in New Zealand, but I remember leaving Madras to come to Singapore, and I was in this colourful green and yellow and red skirt and blouse, and I arrived in Singapore and I went to board Air New Zealand flight, and I looked around and I was surrounded by tall people with blonde hair, dressed in grey and black. I was like this colourful little sparrow amidst all these people, and it's such a vivid memory.
Do you still feel like a colourful little sparrow? You'd want to keep that.
I suppose I do. I do wear pinks and oranges and browns, lots of colours.
I guess the question there is, did you have to lose a lot of yourself to fit in, or was it about even fitting in?
It's an interesting question, because when you set off from your motherland, you have no idea what you're coming into. We certainly had no idea about New Zealand. And I remember in the flight, somebody told me everything down south from Bombay Hills was Antarctica, and I was going to Balclutha. This was, of course, an Aucklander. But I was much older. I was about 35 when I left India, and I didn't have the luxury, or we didn't have the luxury of saying, if it doesn't work out here, we're going to go back. Because we had 2 older children. They had to leave school to come here and settle in. So one of the things that I remember having this conversation with my mother and my grandmother, and one of the things they said was, you're moving, you're uprooting yourself and going somewhere. And whatever life throws at you, you need to face it there. This was a conversation, and that was it. That was just a statement that, and I can't remember if it was Mum or Grandma who said that. But that stayed with me. You know, life throws a lot of challenges. It brings with it beauty and joy and harmony and chaos and everything. So no matter whether it was New Zealand or India, I would have had to face it. When I left India, I came with 2 suitcases. I didn't have much room for anything. I had nothing except the clothes that I needed, the colourful ones. But with me, I brought a little piece of my grandmother on my dad's side, my dad's mother, and my mum's mother. So there was 2 little objects that I brought from there. I don't know why I brought it, but it was there was a sense of poignancy when I left India. But going back, I go back almost every year because my parents are getting older. And going back, you notice how much each of them has aged within that time. So those 2 little objects that I have connect me to something beyond myself. I mean, I come from humble roots. Neither of my grandparents were rich. So there is a sense of gratitude of being able to stand on these shoulders of people who have gone before, who have each contributed just that little bit more to the next generation. And if there was one story that I like passing on to my children, it's that. To say, you're not a unit in yourself, you're not an entity or an individual, it's not all about you. you're here because these people had to go through all these issues in their lives in order that you're here today. So there's a sense of gratitude that comes with it. And I suppose those objects that I hold even today link me back to those people who have gone before me. I mean, I have a pestle and mortar there that belonged to my great-grandmother's aunt. So it goes back 5 generations. So when I hold it, it's like there is the sense of something being touched in 1850 by an ancestor of mine. And that's quite grounding as well as liberating. I have been privileged that I've been in Montessori schools ever since I landed in the country. And Montessori brings with it another way of being. So in a way, I don't know if I have the blinkers of just being in this magical world. But when I do look outside of Montessori, I think if there's any country in the world that is ready and is a great place to live, I think it's New Zealand.
Having a different lens. What are the okay things about this country? Because I think hope is important in these discussions.
I think our ability to connect with nature and what we have around is one of the biggest pluses in our world. Because we are small and because we're so far away from the rest of humanity, we have a lot of different peoples. We have a lot of different natural formations, geographical features. We have, and we have a way of, it's going to be all right. That huge, it's a very small saying, "She be all right, mate." But it's so big when you look at it, because things will be all right in the end. And my colleague Pauline always tells me that things will come all right in the wash, she says. Her mother used to say that, and they do. I mean, we've been in New Brighton since I joined the school, and we've had earthquakes and we've had fires in Christchurch. We've had all sorts, but we're still good. We have a resilience, and that seems to be quite inbuilt in Kiwis. There is the other thing that Kiwis seem to do is look outside of they're not stuck in a wee box. They have the ability to look outside of the box and find different solutions to anything that's coming up. So I think we're great.
Behind you there are a multitude of flags, and it speaks not only of, I guess, the diversity that you've been talking about, but also the possibility that we can all be together in one place in a harmonious fashion. How do you teach that specifically in the school environment?
Unity in diversity. That's what we offer. So what we offer basically is stories of people from different lands. But what you draw from each story is that no matter where you come from, no matter what you look like, the fundamental needs of all human beings is the same. The need for food, water, shelter, love, spirituality, connection. These needs are always the same. So we have at school what we call an international day. Once we celebrate the internationalness of all of us. And within this little school, we have about 87 children and say 100 together with children as well as teachers. We have 27 different nationalities in the school. So you can see when you come into International Day that we all come in our costumes is not the word, in our national dress, and we bring the plate of food that has been what we used to eat, and so everything gets shared, it gets put on a table, and everybody tries everything. So the children tell stories, or they might have got a little object from home that they want to talk about. So it's that sharing, and within that sharing, it's up to the teacher to draw the commonality, those common threads, to say, this is the same as some, all of us are the same no matter what we look like or which country our roots are in.
What advice would you give to someone who is thinking of coming to New Zealand? What would you say to them about this country?
I think New Zealand is a slice of paradise. Anybody who comes in needs to be aware of being able to be a part of this community. And in order to be a part of the community of people, it's to come with an openness of mind,